to The Book of Life, a show about Jewish books, music, film, and web. I'm Heidi Estrin. The Book of Life is a podcast service of the Feldman Library at Congregation B'nai Israel in Boca Raton, Florida. Additional support comes from the Association of Jewish Libraries. Here's a quick interview I grabbed in the hallway during the Association of Jewish Libraries convention in July 2009. I spoke to Simone Elkeles and June Cummins just after their conference session, Bat Mitzvah and Beyond, Jewish Girls Coming of Age in Fiction. So here we are at the AJL convention with Simone Elkeles, author of the How to Ruin series, and with June Cummins, who is a forthcoming author on a biography of Sidney Taylor, but who, in the meantime, is writing all sorts of amazing articles about children's literature, including trends in Jewish children's literature. So let's first talk about Simone's book. So tell us about the series.
The first book, How to Ruin a Summer Vacation, is about a girl who goes to Israel for the summer with her dad. She's reluctant to go because she doesn't really know about Israel. Her father is estranged. And she has to go, and she finds herself in this strange country, and she knows nothing about Israel. And she thinks she's all that, and she's got a major attitude American from Chicago, like me. And she learns pretty quickly that she's not all that and can't really compete with the Israelis on their turf. And it's a hilarious coming-of-age novel.
Okay. And it's not just one novel.
No, it's a series. The second one is called How to Ruin My Teenage Life. And Amy, my main character, is back in Chicago, and she gets herself in all these ridiculous situations in the city. And she's also going through conversion classes because her mom is not Jewish, and she wants to be fully Jewish. So even though her dad is Israeli Jewish, she wants to be fully. And she's reading the Bible, and she's trying to learn Torah, and she's having some issues with it as a contemporary American Jewish teen.
Okay, and then you've got a third one coming out, which is not quite available, but any minute now?
It'll come out in, I think, November. I think it was supposed to come out in October, and I think it is coming out in November. It's called How to Ruin Your Boyfriend's Reputation. And Amy is going back to Israel, and she signs up for a program in Israel where American teens go into a military program in the Israeli Defense Forces just to learn what basic training is all about and what the Israeli teens do. And she thinks she's going to hang out with her boyfriend who's on the same base, and it's not going to be hanging out with her boyfriend. She has to do all these little army things, and she gets herself in all these awful, ridiculous, hilarious situations there.
Okay, so I think some of the key words that you just used were hilarious and contemporary, and this is maybe kind of a new thing on the scene. June, what do you think?
Well, I would definitely say that books featuring American Jewish kids is definitely a new trend. We've had a lot of Jewish children's literature and some Jewish literature for teenagers, but most of it has to do with historical fiction or Holocaust stories, or for younger kids it'll be stories about holidays. Back in 2000, I was saying then that there aren't enough books featuring contemporary American Jewish children, along with my cousin, Naomi Toder. And I've been very excited to see that since about 2005, this is an area that's starting to absolutely explode. I think the book that really kind of ushered in the phase was Fiona Rosenblum's how does it go? You are so not invited, which is a book I had some issues with.
Wait, let's finish the title.
You are so not invited to my bat mitzvah.
Right.
And the sequel is We Are So Crashing Your Bar Mitzvah. Those books have some issues, but what they did was they showed contemporary Jewish children having Jewish experiences, but also experiences that weren't necessarily Jewish. And since then, we've seen a great blossoming of those kinds of books. And Simone is a perfect example. Her books have this Jewish protagonist who's a great American teenager, very, in some ways very representative, in some ways very much her own person. But the experiences she's having, yes, they have to do with being part Jewish and learning how to be, convert to Jewish and learning all about Israel and all of that. But at the same time, many of the things she's dealing with are just everyday experiences that all teenagers could relate to. And I think it's wonderful that we're seeing all kinds of books featuring Jewish teenagers having a huge variety of experiences and at the same time being Jewish teenagers.
Okay, good. And I like the fact that it's funny, because I think this is often a complaint that Jewish books are very serious or depressing because they deal with the Holocaust, they deal with persecution, and your books don't really deal with that at all, do they? Or do they touch upon that?
you may touch upon it a little bit, but I really do not like being depressed and was having a hard time finding how I can write a Jewish book without being depressing, which is funny. You would think that it would be easy, but I feel that a lot of the books that came before me, we haven't had it easy in this world, and I really wanted to go against that and do something that was hilarious, fun, making Jewish cool, and having a contemporary hilarious novel or funny novel about a Jewish girl instead of being so serious. I do write serious books, but I really wanted these to not be.
So were you consciously bucking that trend, or this is just what was in you, or what?
I think being funny is very natural to me. Also, being serious is natural too. But I love being funny, and
I'll vouch for that. Your session earlier was like stand-up comedy. People were rolling in the aisles.
I do. I love making people laugh. I love it. To me, that is what my life is about. So, for me, anything ridiculous I can make this character do, I'm going to do, and it entertains me and makes me laugh too.
Okay. And then, June, you guys shared a session because it had the theme tying them together about being for YA readers. So how does humor, like historically, give us sort of a trend with humor?
In fact, Jewish children's literature has been humorous. To me, the beginnings of Jewish children's literature are with people like Judy Blume and E.L. Konigsberg. Books that came out in the late 60s and early 70s about the B'nai Bagels was Konigsberg's contribution, and Are You There, God? Is Judy Blume's, but also all those other books that Judy Blume was famous for, like the Tales of the Fourth Grade Nothing and the Super Fudge. Those are hilarious books, and so I think there's definitely a precedent, but I think the authors today that pick up on that and can run with it are ones that are definitely going to be successful. I did read several YA books that were not at all funny, that they were very serious, and I think that's what's so wonderful about what's happening now is that we have the range, and we can offer kids a range of books.
You were talking in the session about the Kvetchfessional, and I want to hear more about that and also ask you if Simone's books fit into that in some way.
Last year, I did talk about your books a little bit in that mode, but not critically. Last year, I started talking about what I called the Kvetchfessional because I saw, especially with the bat mitzvah books, that these girls were all speaking in the first person, although, as I'm finding out, almost all YA literature is written in the first person, but that there was a kind of whiny tone, and what I noticed in those books was that it seemed like they were whining about things like having frizzy hair and annoying little brothers, but often underlying those issues were more complex issues about being Jewish, and that's when authors would bring up things like the Holocaust or the history behind the character's life in terms of like grandparents who were survivors or something like that. So I saw that trend there, and last year I was kind of complaining about it, but what I see now, what's happening is as authors are writing for older kids, and I would include Simone's books in that category. Your books aren't bat mitzvah books. There may be some kvetching and complaining, but it's not defining the books the way I saw with the bat mitzvah books as much. There is that kind of complaining tone, and it's kind of dangerous when it gets attached to a Jewish character because of stereotypes, but I do see authors doing much more than that, and I'm really happy to see that.
Yeah, it sounded like this year you were finally satisfied, because I've heard you speak in past years and you're always like, well, here's the big gaps that need to be filled, and it's like it's finally happening.
Right, I do. I see it's happening, and I really have to thank both authors and publishers, because somewhere, somehow, people are making this happen, and it doesn't happen in a vacuum. So.
Right. But so all your kvetching has been helpful to the world.
Well, it must be. That must be it. All the publishers heard my papers at AJL conferences.
That's right.
So, somebody's listening somewhere, and there's obviously other people saying similar things. So I'm glad that publishers, especially in this economic downturn, are still able. All these books that I've been talking about have been published since 2005. You know, and you have a book coming out soon about a Jewish girl in 2009, and I think that's really good that it's still happening.
So just off the top of both your heads, just could you throw out some titles that people should know about? Obviously, your books, Simone. We talked about those.
Yeah, I did like Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist. I thought it was kind of a realistic take on this Jewish girl living in New York. I'm trying to think of other ones. Do you?
I liked Paper Towns, even though in that book it just happens that the characters are Jewish, and there's very little made of the fact that they're Jewish. It's not completely ignored, but it's very minor.
Right, but that's isn't that actually also like a sort of more recent trend of the characters who happen to be Jewish and that it's just part of their life, it's not the
which
key
is, I think,
point of the story.
Nick and Nora, although in Nick and Nora there's a little bit more made of it. But other books like that are the Magic in Manhattan series, like the Bras and Broomsticks. And at first I really didn't like that book, but then when I got into it, I started laughing out loud. And that's what it was. That's what converted me. Like, that was...
the humor.
Yeah. Because I thought they were a little derivative, like kind of Harry Potter influence. Also, New York City Kid, there's a lot of those books.
Right.
But still, she brought it together, I think, successfully, and I went and started reading the second book on my own. So I like that. And there was another... if you want a more intense reading experience, there's the one about the kid who gets bulimia. That's called Nothing. And then there are more serious books if you're looking for more intense experiences. But I do agree that the humorous ones are going to get the most readers.
Right. Okay, excellent. All right. Is there anything you guys want to talk about that I didn't ask you?
I think you're good.
Okay.
Yeah, you are
Okay.
good.
All right. Great.
Talk to Terry Gross about it when she retired.
Okay. Well, June and Simone, thank you so much.
Thank you.
There are so many ways to connect with the Book of Life. Fan us at facebook.com/bookoflifepodcast. Follow us at twitter.com/bookoflifepod. Email us at bookoflifepodcast@gmail.com and listen to the latest episode by phone at 916-313-3820. And of course, find links to everything at bookoflifepodcast.com. The Book of Life is a podcast service of the Feldman Library, a congregation B'nai Israel in Boca Raton, Florida, at cbiboca.org, and is supported in part by the Association of Jewish Libraries at jewishlibraries.org. Our background music is provided by the Freilach Makers Klezmer String Band at freilachmakers.com. Thanks for listening, and happy reading.